What if the most powerful healing plants on the planet weren't in pharmacies, but tucked into bowls of miso soup and growing wild on the slopes of Mount Fuji? Most people have no idea that while we chase the latest wellness trend, Japanese physicians and Okinawan villagers have used a precise set of plants for over 1,000 years, plants logged in the Honzō Wamyō, prescribed by Edo-period Kampo doctors, eaten daily in the world's longest living villages, and modern research keeps catching up to what these healers already knew. Today I'm walking you through 11 of them. Stick around because number 7 built an island where people routinely live past 100, and number 1 was called the herb of immortality, and researchers are now studying its effects on cancer cells. Alright, let's get into it. Number 11. Matcha. The monk's morning ritual that became a court obsession. In the year 1191, a Zen monk named Eisai returned from Tang, China, carrying tea seeds and a manuscript called Kisa Yojoki, drinking tea for health. He planted those seeds in the hills of Uji, and within 2 centuries the powdered green tea ground from those plants had become the morning ritual of samurai retainers, imperial court physicians, and the entire monastic class of Kyoto. This wasn't a beverage, it was medicine. Matcha is whole green tea leaf, stone ground, suspended in water, swallowed completely. You're not steeping the leaf and discarding it. You're consuming it. And that single difference is why matcha delivers a concentration of compounds that ordinary brewed green tea simply cannot match. The dominant compound is EGCG, a polyphenol with one of the strongest research records in modern nutritional science. Studies have linked regular green tea consumption with improved cardiovascular markers, reduced LDL cholesterol, better blood sugar regulation, and protective effects on the liver. Matcha also contains L-theanine, an amino acid that produces a state described in research as calm alertness, relaxed focus without sedation. The combination of L-theanine and caffeine is why the Zen monasteries used matcha during long meditation. They needed sharpness without agitation. Here's what most people miss. Color is the marker. Real matcha is a vivid jade. The dull yellow-green powder sold in supermarket aisles has been sitting in the wrong storage, exposed to light and oxygen, and most of its EGCG is degraded. Buy ceremonial grade from a Japanese producer. Whisk a teaspoon into hot water each morning, and you're drinking what the Heian court drank 1,000 years ago. Number 10. Daikon, the white root every Japanese grandmother kept in the kitchen. Walk into any traditional Japanese household in the Edo period, and the kitchen would have a long white radish hanging from the rafters, drying for the winter, or sitting whole in a clay jar of rice bran. Daikon was not a side dish. It was a digestive tool, an infection remedy, and the most prescribed home medicine in the country for centuries. The traditional knowledge was specific. After a heavy meal, you ate grated daikon. After eating raw fish, you ate daikon. When a child caught a cold, the mother grated daikon, mixed it with hot water and a touch of ginger, and made the child drink it. Modern research has caught up to every one of those uses. Daikon contains digestive enzymes, diastase and amylase among them, that genuinely help break down starches and proteins. That's why it's served alongside grilled fish in nearly every traditional Japanese meal. It's not garnish, it's an enzyme delivery system. The root also contains glucosinolates and isothiocyanates, sulfur compounds in the same family as those in broccoli and wasabi, with documented antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects. Studies have linked these compounds to liver detoxification support and reduced inflammatory markers. Here's the catch. Heat destroys most of the active enzymes. The medicinal preparation was always raw, grated, mixed into ponzu, taken with hot water for a cold. Cooked daikon and stew is delicious, but pharmacologically it's a different food. If you want what the Edo housewife was using, eat it raw, eat it fresh, eat it the day you grate it. Number 9. Shiso, the leaf the Edo physicians called the resurrection herb. There's a story passed down in Kampo tradition about how shiso got its name. A young man in ancient China was dying from food poisoning after eating contaminated crab. A traveling herbalist gathered a handful of purple leaves, brewed them into a tea, and within hours the boy was awake and recovering. The Chinese characters used for shiso translate roughly to purple revival. The Japanese kept the name and the use. Shiso, Perilla frutescens, became one of the workhorses of Edo-period Kampo. It was prescribed for food poisoning, shellfish allergies, colds, and chest congestion. Today, it's still wrapped around sashimi and pickled with umeboshi, and most people eat it without realizing they're eating the medicine that was prescribed for the fish itself. Modern research is direct. Shiso leaves contain perolaldehyde and rosmarinic acid, compounds with documented antimicrobial, anti-allergic, and anti-inflammatory activity. Research has linked perilla extract to reduced histamine response in allergy sufferers. Studies suggest the leaves inhibit growth of common bacteria associated with food spoilage. The Edo physicians who paired shiso with raw fish were not being decorative. They were using a genuine antimicrobial wrapper for a high-risk food. If you understand what shiso actually does, the entire pairing logic of Japanese cuisine starts making sense. The wasabi, the ginger, the shiso. Every garnish on a plate of sashimi is a microbial defense. Use it generously. Fresh leaves in salads, wrapped around rice, blended into pesto. Dried leaves brewed as tea at the first sign of seasonal allergies. This is one of those plants the West simply never learned to take seriously. Number 8. Yuzu, the winter citrus the Heian court bathed in. In Kyoto, on the day of the winter solstice, families still drop whole yuzu fruits into hot baths and soak in the fragrant water. The tradition is over 1,000 years old. It started in the Heian court as a ritual believed to ward off colds and warm the body through the coldest weeks of the year. The practice spread to the entire country and never stopped. This wasn't superstition, it was observation. Yuzu is a Japanese citrus with a complex floral aroma somewhere between grapefruit and mandarin. The peel is rich in essential oils, limonene, linalool, and a high concentration of vitamin C and flavonoids. Research has linked compounds in yuzu peel to improved peripheral circulation, reduced anxiety in aroma studies, and antimicrobial activity against common skin and respiratory pathogens. Studies on yuzu bathing specifically have shown measurable improvements in peripheral blood flow and skin moisture compared to plain hot water. The volatile aromatic compounds are absorbed both through inhalation and through the warm skin. The Heian aristocracy were running a primitive form of aromatherapy 1,000 years before the term was coined. Yuzu is also used internally. The juice goes into ponzu. The zest is grated over fish and noodles. The peel is candied and eaten as winter medicine for sore throats. The whole fruit is functional, from skin to seed. Real yuzu is hard to find outside Japan because the fruit is highly perishable. Frozen juice and good quality dried peel are your realistic options. Drop dried peel into a hot bath in December, and you're doing what the Heian court did. Number 7. Kombu, the seaweed that built an island of centenarians. Travel to Okinawa today and you'll find a population that has been studied by longevity researchers for decades. Centenarians per capita that outpaced nearly every other region on Earth. Low rates of cardiovascular disease. Sharp cognition late into life. The diet has been picked apart by scientists looking for the secret, and one ingredient appears in nearly every meal: kombu, the thick brown kelp that the Japanese have been harvesting from cold northern waters for centuries. Kombu is the foundation of dashi, the umami stock that underlies almost all Japanese cooking. It's not a flavor enhancer. It's a mineral and bioactive compound delivery system that quietly enters the body in every soup, every braise, every pickled vegetable. The compounds are well documented. Fukoidan, a sulfated polysaccharide unique to brown seaweed, has been studied extensively for immune-modulating and anti-inflammatory effects. Research has linked fukoidan to support for healthy gut bacteria and improved cardiovascular markers. Kombu is also one of the most concentrated natural sources of iodine on Earth, supplying a mineral that the modern diet, especially outside coastal regions, is increasingly deficient in. The mineral content also includes calcium, magnesium, and potassium in highly bioavailable forms. The Okinawans never thought of kombu as a supplement. They thought of it as the broth their grandmother made. And that's exactly the point. Daily, low-dose, lifelong consumption of bioactive compounds in food form is what the longevity research keeps pointing back to. Buy whole-dried kombu. Soak a strip in cold water overnight. Use that water as the base for soup. You've just made a 1,000-year-old medicine. Quick note before we keep going. Most of what's sold as Japanese kombu, matcha, or shiso in Western supermarkets is the cheap, processed end of the supply chain. The real medicine looks, tastes, and works differently. I've linked the producers I personally trust in the description. Hit subscribe. The most powerful items on this list are still ahead. Number 6. Dokudami. The wild weed that 10 medicines couldn't replace. Across rural Japan, in damp shaded corners of every garden, grows a heart-shaped leaf with a sharp, polarizing smell. Dokudami, its formal Japanese name Juyaku, translates to 10 medicines because traditional folk healers claimed it treated 10 different ailments at once. For centuries, it was the household remedy for skin infections, sinus congestion, high blood pressure, and digestive problems. Most people in the West have never heard of it. In Japan, it's still sold in every herbal pharmacy, dried and bagged as tea. Modern research is starting to validate the traditional claims. Houtuinia cordata contains quercetin, a flavonoid with extensively studied anti-inflammatory and antihistamine properties. The plant also contains a class of compounds with documented antimicrobial and antiviral activity in laboratory studies. Research has linked dokudami extract to support for cardiovascular health and reduced allergic inflammation in animal models. Here's what most Westerners miss. The smell is the medicine. That sharp, almost fishy aroma comes from the same volatile compounds doing the antimicrobial work. Traditional healers told patients that if the tea didn't smell strong, it wouldn't work. They were right at the chemical level. Dried dokudami tea has a much milder flavor than the fresh leaf. Brew a teaspoon in hot water. Drink 1 cup a day during allergy season or after a cold. For skin issues, the cooled tea was traditionally used as a wash. This is the plant that became invisible to the West simply because no one bothered to translate the field guides. In Japan, it has never stopped being medicine. Number 5. Real wasabi. The fishmonger's defense against poisoning. Walk through Tsukiji Market 100 years ago, and you'd see a specific ritual. Every fishmonger kept a stock of fresh wasabi root. Every plate of raw fish was served with freshly grated wasabi paste. This wasn't tradition for the sake of tradition. Sushi began as a poor man's food, and refrigeration didn't exist. Raw fish carried real risk. Wasabi was the defense. Modern food microbiology has confirmed exactly what the Edo fishmongers knew. Real wasabi, Wasabia japonica, not the green-dyed horseradish paste sold in most sushi restaurants outside Japan, contains isothiocyanates, sulfur compounds with documented antimicrobial activity against the bacteria most commonly responsible for foodborne illness. Studies have linked wasabi extract to inhibition of Vibrio parahemolyticus, the pathogen most associated with raw seafood poisoning. The compounds are also volatile. The sharp burn that hits your sinuses is the active medicine evaporating into your airways, where it has documented effects on respiratory pathogens. Here's the brutal reality. Almost no one outside Japan has eaten real wasabi. The green paste in most restaurants is horseradish, mustard, food coloring, and sometimes a token amount of wasabi powder. The plant is notoriously difficult to grow. It requires cold mountain stream water and takes nearly 2 years to mature. Real wasabi is sold by the gram and treated like a delicacy. If you can find it, freshly grated on a sharkskin board the way the Edo masters did it, you'll experience something completely different from the supermarket tube. Less burn, more complex flavor, and the genuine antimicrobial defense the fishmongers were relying on. Number 4. Kuko, the eye-bright berry the Tang court traded for silver. In the Tang dynasty, dried red berries were transported along the Silk Road in sealed jars and traded by weight in the imperial markets. The plant was Lycium chinense, known in Japan as kuko, in the West as goji. The berries were prescribed by court physicians for failing eyesight, for liver weakness, for the exhaustion of old age. By the Heian period, Japanese physicians had imported the plant and the practice. Kuko entered the Kampo pharmacopoeia and never left. Amongst traditional discipline included a small handful of dried kuko berries every morning, often steeped in tea or eaten with rice. The practice was tied directly to long meditation sessions and the strain it put on the eyes. Modern research aligns with the traditional claims. Kuko berries are rich in zeaxanthin, a carotenoid concentrated in the macula of the human eye, where it filters damaging blue light. Studies have linked dietary zeaxanthin to reduced risk of age-related macular degeneration. The berries also contain a class of polysaccharides studied for immune-modulating and antioxidant effects. The traditional preparation was simple: a small handful of dried berries soaked in hot water with a slice of ginger or a few green tea leaves. Drunk slowly. The berries themselves chewed at the bottom of the cup. They taste mildly sweet, slightly tart, faintly herbal. If you understand why monks added them to morning tea before long days of sutra reading, the modern research on macular pigment density makes the connection obvious. They were protecting the tool they used most, the eyes. Number 3. Yomogi. The herb burned over the body for 2,000 years. There's a Japanese practice called moxibustion. A small cone of dried ground mugwort is placed on a specific point on the body and burned slowly. The heat penetrates deep into tissue. The smoke and the heat together are believed to move stagnant energy, ease pain, and stimulate circulation. The practice came from Tang, China, through the same monastic networks that brought Kampo medicine, and Japanese physicians refined it into one of the most precise heat therapies in the world. The plant is yomogi, Artemisia princeps, Japanese mugwort. Beyond moxa, it's eaten in mochi, brewed as tea, used in baths, and applied as a poultice for skin conditions. Modern research is interesting. Mugwort contains a complex mix of compounds including chamazulene, thujone, and a class of sesquiterpene lactones with documented anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects. Studies on moxibustion specifically have linked the practice to measurable changes in peripheral circulation and reduced markers of inflammation in chronic pain conditions. For internal use, yomogi tea has been traditionally prescribed for digestive complaints, menstrual pain, and as a general blood-moving tonic. The fresh young leaves are pounded into mochi for the spring festival, a ritual food that doubled as a seasonal cleanse. Here's what makes yomogi different from most plants on this list. It's medicinal, whether you eat it, drink it, burn it, or bathe in it. Few plants on earth have that kind of flexibility. Buy dried yomogi from a Japanese herbalist, a pinch in hot water for tea, crushed leaves added to bath salts. The 1,000-year-old practice translates intact. Number 2. Umeboshi. The samurai's field ration that kept armies alive. A samurai on a long forced march in the 16th century carried very little: a handful of cooked rice, a small clay pot of miso, and wrapped in a cloth, a few wrinkled salt-cured plums called umeboshi. He would tuck a single plum into the center of a rice ball at the end of the day. The salt rehydrated him. The acid revived his digestion. The plum, soldiers believed, kept him from getting sick. The samurai were right. Umeboshi is the Japanese plum, picked unripe, salted heavily, sun-dried, and aged for months or years. The result is intensely sour, intensely salty, and shelf-stable for decades. Modern research has confirmed multiple things the samurai already knew. The plums contain citric acid, malic acid, and a range of polyphenols associated with improved digestion and antimicrobial activity. Studies have linked umeboshi extract to inhibition of Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium responsible for most stomach ulcers. Research has also linked umeboshi consumption to support for liver function and reduced fatigue markers. The traditional Japanese phrase is umeboshi wa ichinichi ichiko, 1 umeboshi a day. Eaten in the morning with green tea and rice, it was considered protection against the stresses of the day. If you understand what salt loss and digestive stress did to a marching army, the survival logic of umeboshi becomes obvious. It was a portable, indestructible electrolyte and antimicrobial in one fruit. Real umeboshi is aged, salty, and made with shiso. The cheap pink imitation in most Western stores is sweetened and dyed. Find the real thing. 1 a day, the way the samurai did. Number 1. Reishi. The mushroom Taoist alchemists called the herb of immortality. We end at the top of the list because nothing else in the Japanese medicinal tradition carries the reverence of reishi. In Chinese, it was lingji. In Japanese, manantake, the 10,000-year mushroom. The Taoist alchemists of the Tang dynasty sought it on remote mountains. Japanese emperors received it as the rarest of tribute. For most of recorded history, finding one in the wild was treated as a sign of imperial favor. Then, in the 1970s, Japanese researchers learned to cultivate it. The supply problem ended. The research explosion began. Reishi, Ganoderma lucidum, is now one of the most studied medicinal mushrooms in the world. The dominant compounds are beta-glucans and triterpenes. Beta-glucans are polysaccharides with extensively documented immune-modulating activity. Triterpenes are bioactive compounds with research linked to liver protection, anti-inflammatory effects, and modulation of the stress response. Most striking is the oncology research. Reishi extract is being studied as a complementary therapy alongside cancer treatment, with research linking it to improved immune function and reduced fatigue in patients receiving chemotherapy. The Taoists, who called it the herb of immortality, were not writing poetry. They were observing what a powerful immune modulator did to people who lived long enough to be considered remarkable. Reishi is intensely bitter. It is not eaten. It is decocted, sliced and simmered for hours into a dark, earthy broth. Modern extracts and capsules are also widely available. If you take one thing from this list, this is the one to research deepest. 2,000 years of imperial reverence. Decades of modern oncology research catching up. 11 plants. 2,000 years of careful observation. Matcha sharpens the mind. Kombu feeds the gut. Reishi modulates the immune system. Umeboshi rebuilds digestion. The ancients were right. The research keeps confirming it. Information without action is just entertainment. Pick one plant from this list this week and source the real version, not the supermarket imitation. Quality matters more than most people realize. And I've linked the Japanese producers I personally trust in the description below. Drop a comment and tell me which plant surprised you most. Was it the dokudami? The wasabi the fishmongers actually used? The reishi? I read every single comment. If you haven't subscribed to the Eastern Garden yet, hit that button now. See you in the next one.